Namaskar. With the permission of Honorable Minister, can we start the program now?
Yes, please start.
Dr. Nandrani Chaudhary, please start the program. Dr. Nandrani Chaudhary. Dr. Chaudhary, please start the program.
No person has ever been honored for what he received. Honor is the reward for what he gave. The things you do for yourself are gone when you are gone. The things you do for others remains your legacy. Good evening, everyone. I have the distinct honor to usher on board all our venerated dignitaries as National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, in concert with its partner, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, University of Delhi, is set to release the book on International Law, Contemporary Developments, Essays in the honor of Professor A.K. Koul. For the kind attention of the assemblage, the book has been edited by Professor V.K. Ahuja, Vice Chancellor of National Law University Judicial Academy, Assam, Professor Pinki Sharma, Faculty Member of Law, University of Delhi, and Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, Officer on Special Duty, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance. Small cheer and great welcome make a merry feast. To auspicate the proceedings of the evening, may I call upon Professor P.C. Joshi, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Honorable Union Minister, Law and Justice, Government of India, Shri Kiren Rijiju, who is an illustrious alumnus of both Hansraj College as well as Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Guest of honor, Justice A.K. Sikri, former Judge, Supreme Court of India. Vice Chancellor, the National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, Professor V.K. Ahuja, who is one of the most dynamic law professors that I have come across. This is a very interesting and eventful program where National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, is collaborating with University of Delhi's Institute of Eminence School, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance. I would like to congratulate both the OSD, Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance, Dr. Ashutosh Mishra, as well as Professor V.K. Ahuja, the worthy Vice Chancellor. Today is the occasion when we are going to remember one of the stalwart of law faculty, Professor Avatar Kishan Koul, who needs no introduction. He rose from a very, very humble background in the hinterland of Kashmir Valley and rose to become a very illustrious professor of international law, having international recognition across Europe and America. So it is a great occasion for us not only to collaborate with National Law University and Judicial Academy, but also to remember one of the illustrious teacher who has taught a generation of legal minds of our country. I feel very honored to welcome especially the editors, Prof. V.K. Ahuja, Prof. Pinki Sharma, and Dr. Ashutosh Acharya, who have collected excellent papers on international law. The book is called International Law, Contemporary Developments. And I think as far as international law is concerned, I'm very proud to state that University of Delhi has made very significant contribution in this field. And we have very illustrious professors from University of Delhi who have devoted their lifetime to study the intricacies of international law. So on this great occasion, I think it is my privilege to welcome all the dignitaries. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me. I welcome again on behalf of University of Delhi, all the dignitaries. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Once again, welcome to our midst. Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring. Thank you, sir, for the warm welcome address. Moving on. A great man does not seek applause or praise. He seeks for truth. He seeks the road to happiness, and what he ascertains, he gives to others. It is my proud privilege to provide a preliminary note on our guest of honor, Mr. Justice A.K. Sikri, sir. Justice Sikri is an eminent jurist and a former judge of the Supreme Court of India. He was sworn in as a judge of the Supreme Court on 12th April 2013. Prior to that, he had served as the Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court. He retired as the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court of India on 6th March 2019. Presently, he is an international judge at the Singapore International Commercial Court, Singapore Supreme Court. He was sworn into the post on the 2nd of August 2019 by the President of Singapore. He is also the chairperson of News Broadcasting Standards Authority. A lawyer for 22 years, Justice A.K. Sikri, sir, in his judicial stint since, has notched a total of 4,570 judgments. My Lord, I call upon you to deliver a talk on the Singapore Convention on Mediation on the occasion of the book release program co-hosted by National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, and the University of Delhi. My Lord, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Nandrani Chaudhary, for your kind words and generous introduction about me. I acknowledge and deeply honored by the presence of Mr. Kiren Rijiju, Honorable Minister of Law and Justice. My congratulations to you, sir, for the assumption of this office, because for want of your phone number, I couldn't talk to you, although I wanted to congratulate you. And insofar as in person, this COVID conditions don't permit physical meetings. But this is an occasion when I can congratulate you. And yes, being a part of judiciary, as I was once, I hope that your stint as this minister, which is a very important ministry in so far as legal system is concerned, is going to be really fruitful, and I think you are going to bring desired reforms in all respects. That is what I can say. Professor P.C. Joshi, Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Delhi, Professor V.K. Ahuja, all other dignitaries who are present today. Good evening to everybody. I have been given this task by Professor Ahuja to speak on Singapore Convention, to which I would come shortly. But before that, since the occasion is release of this book, International Law Contemporary Developments, which are the essays in the honor of Professor A.K. Koul. So I would say that, yes, unfortunately, he is not present today, as he breathed his last about less than 5 months ago in April 2021. But this venture was started by Professor Ahuja along with Professor Pinki Sharma and Dr. Ashutosh Acharya after taking his consent. And I should here commend this team of editors who thought about collecting these essays in international law in the honor of Professor Koul, because he richly deserved this kind of treatment. We would have welcomed had the book come during his lifetime, and it would have been a wonderful occasion for him. But I see his brother is present here, and as I've seen him, and I think it's a moment of pride for his brother at least to witness this program. I was, of course, he was teaching when I was a student in Law Faculty, University of Delhi. He did not teach me specifically, but his brother and me were class fellows. So in that capacity, I had quite a few interactions with him. And of course, thereafter, when I also taught for some time in Law Faculty, and because of my continued association with not only Delhi University, but particularly the academia insofar as law is concerned, which includes all professors in Delhi University. So I remained in contact with him for quite some time. And I say that it's a perfect honor which is given to Professor Koul, and I congratulate the editors for bringing out this book. Now, this book is about, as it says, international law, contemporary developments. And if one goes through the book, it is very interesting that not the traditional or the normally commonly known issues in international law which are being discussed here. And when it talks of contemporary issues, then the issues like the BIT in the area of in the era of globalization, when bilateral investment treaties are there to encourage FDIs from other countries. So BITs and how this regime has gone ahead, and how India has faced some of the challenges in the enforcement of BIT treaties, and not only India, many third world countries, including countries from Asia and Africa who have faced these challenges. This becomes a very contemporary issue insofar as international law is concerned. And likewise, it talks about the issues in international law of arbitration, and in the process, how the law has developed, and apart from developing the law on that account, what are the aspects of intellectual property, etc., which have been the subject matter So therefore, I would say the theme of the book is really novel and it is remarkable. So for that also I should congratulate, and that becomes a real tribute to Professor Koul. But the question is, yes, things would be discussed about the book, etc., in due course of time. But why I have highlighted these issues? They are, let me say, very relevant insofar as Singapore Convention is on mediation is concerned, about which we are discussing, and that I will come to that. And so therefore, that was one reason. Otherwise, one may feel that on an occasion like this, when we are discussing about the release of book on international law, why we are discussing about the mediation. So that was the relevancy I wanted to show. Another very important aspect is that this the Singapore Convention, which was adopted on 20th December 2019, but it came into effect on 12th September 2020. So day after 12th September, we would be completing 1 year of this convention, and that is why this entire week is being celebrated as Singapore Convention Week, and programs are being held. So in that sense also, it becomes very, very relevant topic for today's discussion. Of course, as I said earlier, this topic was chosen by or suggested to me by Professor Ahuja, and because of these reasons, I readily agreed to speak on that. Now, the time which is allotted, of course, mediation is one subject on which one can speak for hours together. And but I have to complete my address in 20 minutes, and therefore I have to be very, very careful in selecting the contents of my speech today, and at the same time bring home the message which I want to give. Now, before adverting specifically to Singapore Convention, let us talk about mediation generally. Now, what as people know, and most of you would be knowing that you are, most of you are law professors or belong to legal profession. So therefore, it's not that I'm addressing this to some persons who are naive about the mediation. But at the same time, we know that the disputes or the conflicts, they arise in the society. They arise in family also, in other sections of society, in commercial dealings as well. And such conflicts are even between the nations. So, and ever since our mankind has stepped into the so-called, what we call in inverted commas, if I say civilization, the societies are formed, conflicts have arisen. Now, but most important thing is that when the conflicts are there, they should be resolved as early as possible, because that is in the interest of the society, that is in the interest of peace and harmony in the society. We have traditional system. I'm not going to earlier systems of Panchayati Raj or other things, but the traditional system has been that these are resolved through courts which have been established. Now, we have ADR also, we call it alternative dispute resolution. There are various facets of it, or one of it which is there is, and which is very prevalent, is mediation, arbitration. But then even the court where the decision is given by the judge, even the arbitration, which is a private forum, but again, it is a decision given by the arbitrator. Both of these are adjudicatory systems, where a third party decides who is right and who is wrong, and what are the rights to be given, and what is due to a particular party who has come before the court or has gone before the arbitrator for getting his disputes resolved. But then, in contrast, mediation is something where the parties, instead of having the adjudication, they try to resolve the disputes through mutual discussions. So there cannot be any better system than the two parties coming and sitting across the table and trying to resolve the dispute. Yes, when two parties sit together without the intervention of third party, then it may be called negotiation, that they are negotiating. But many times it is seen that one party may be weak it may be financial weakness of that party in the process, or other kind of weakness in comparison with other, and the negotiation between them, they may not be as successful, so they need the intervention of third person, and it is this third person who is called mediator, and who tries to arrive he strives for a settlement which is acceptable to both the parties. He is only a facilitator. And once this settlement, because in contrast with the adjudication or litigation, which I said, where the court only decides in the past what happened, who was right, who was wrong, and on the past event, the verdict is given. But here, the mediator throws open, which is possible, and because, as I said, for paucity of time, it is not possible for me to give so many examples or instances of this. But then there are what the I mean, it has been realized during these negotiations that there may be so many options open instead of option of right and wrong only between the parties. And then when these discussions are there, the parties choose which option would be better for them. And if they agree on that, it results in settlement, which in mediation we call win-win situation. And it is so the three things which are very important, and that is why it makes mediation as the best way of settlement of disputes is self-determination. Here, instead of third party determining, two parties themselves are determining what should be the right course of action for them to end the dispute and or to resolve the dispute. And then fairness, which is achieved because there would always be a fairness when a solution is acceptable to both the parties. And then the most important thing is that unlike adjudication where the decision can be given, it may not be acceptable to one party. That party may go up to Supreme Court, but may still lose. But that party may not be ultimately happy, but then they decision is complied with and they part ways. But in mediation, many times it is restoring the relationship, which is rehabilitation of that relationship, which is the most important aspect of this mediation. And that is why it is called a win-win situation, or it is, I have always termed it as the best mode of access to justice, and in so many circumstances, and written many various articles on that. But then that is what the mediation is. And in this process, what if I may say, trace this history for next 2 minutes, that the mediation in the present form was introduced by amending Code of Civil Procedure, the amending and inserting sections 89 to CPC, which talks of certain modes of ADR, which includes arbitration also, court settlement also, but mediation is one of them. And it started with this, then that means it becomes a court annex mediation, which we call. A case is already filed, case is already pending in the court, but then court thinks that no two parties in a particular given case can arrive at a settlement. So the court sends the case to mediation center or to a mediator. So therefore it is court refers the case, and if this dispute is settled, then the case comes back, and the court may pass a decree in terms of dispose of the case in terms of that settlement, making it very clear by its order that the settlement will be binding between the parties. Now, that is why it's called, this is what section 89 is. And of course, it was, the amendment was in 2002. In 2005, first, pilot project was undertaken, which was by establishing a center in Tisarari, Delhi, which was inaugurated at that time by the Honorable Chief Justice of India of that day. And in last 15-16 years, the way mediation has made strides in this country is remarkable. And it is, I would say, commended all over the world, the efforts of India in this behalf. More importantly, the government and parliament has also, not only in the form of section 89, but has otherwise also recognized this. There are today maybe 10 to 15 legislations which are passed by the parliament where they have made mediation as almost compulsory before going into the litigation, that you first mediate. So various legislation, I need, for paucity of time, I can't go into that. And therefore, it is one system of settlement of dispute, which is encouraged by the government of the day and encouraged by the parliament also. Now, what happens because of this over a period of time, and it's as I said, section 89, when the case is already pending and it is referred for mediation, when it is settled, it becomes easy because it comes back and the court passes a decree in terms of that settlement. So it becomes a binding decree. But what happens when even before going to the court, the two parties want to settle the matter through mediator, and suppose settlement takes place, then under what provision that settlement is binding? That becomes an issue. So therefore, in order to have that settlement binding also, we need what is called, what we may say that it is, we need Mediation Act. Of course, the steps are taken in this behalf, and I know the Law Ministry has also already settled the draft law. I hope Shri Kiren Rijiju ji will try to table it before the Parliament as soon as possible. But then same thing happens when we are talking of international law, and I said BIT, IPR, arbitration, I talked about that. Now today, international, these are the international issues. But if they are settled through mediation, how to enforce that settlement? Suppose there's a dispute between India and UK, BIT disputes in between the Republic of India and some party which is an outsider party. But then before it goes to arbitration, which is generally ICSID, which is the method used under BITs, and but suppose it is settled. Now, how to enforce that? It is for that purpose Singapore Convention has been. It was called a Singapore Convention, but it is UNCITRAL, which came out with model mediation law, like we have in arbitration, which was in the form of New York Convention more than 70 years ago when it was adopted. So likewise, then, because what happens in arbitration, if there are two countries and the parties belonging to two countries, and then the the arbitral award is passed, say it is passed by a seat in UK, but can be enforced in India if it is against a particular party in India by Indian courts. That can be, and that is because of New York Convention, which is adopted and which is recognized and ratified under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act. And it was earlier also, before this act was passed, there was a specific act recognizing the ratifying, because India is a party to New York Convention and has passed the law also to that effect. Now, but what happens when it is the settlement takes place in a commercial word or in any other word through mediation? Then it has also to be enforced. So for that purpose, UNCITRAL came out with this model law on mediation, which should be passed. And it is called Singapore Convention because the treaty, like New York Convention, because that was signed in New York. Likewise, this mediation treaty was signed on, as I said, in December 2019 in Singapore, which came into effect. And good thing is that India was one of the signatories, the first signatories. When few countries signed that on that day, India was also a party to that. Of course, law is to be made to make it possible. But then what this Singapore Convention signifies in respect of commercial matters, of course, if the settlement is arrived at, then it becomes enforceable in any countries, any other country which are party to that Singapore Convention. That is the basic purpose. What is important is in the whole process that the world has today recognized the importance of mediation. If I may say so, in section 89, what was the purpose of introduction? Apart from, as I said earlier, one form of access to justice, it was also to lessen the burden of the courts, which are overburdened. And ADR system is that, and it is proving to be so. And COVID has made it realize that we need to have such a system, and where the ADR, etc., is able to take the burden. And as I earlier said also, that the parliament has also recognized in so many ways. So therefore today with Singapore Convention, we can say mediation is recognized as a profession. Mediation training is recognized now, which is an important need for legislation of mediation is recognized, and government support to this is recognized when the government of India has also signed this treaty, and it recognizes ease of doing business as well as investors' confidence. There are various provisions in this treaty. For lack of time, I'm not going into that because my time is almost up. And therefore, there can be a lecture on that if you want 1 hour lecture on the entire thing. But my purpose for emphasizing all this was that mediation is here to stay. It is one of the most important instrument of access to justice, and it has to be encouraged, which is being encouraged. Now we are just waiting for legislation to be passed by India, because we are a party to the convention, but it has to be ratified, and our constitution says ratification comes only when the parliament also passes a law to that effect. Thank you very much.
It is the mark of a great man that he puts to flight all ordinary calculations. He is at once sublime and touching, childlike and of the race of giants. Thank you, my Lord, for this enriching deliberation. Moving on, as a precursor to the release of the book, may I call upon the proud editor of the book, Professor V.K. Ahuja sir, Vice Chancellor, National Law University and Judicial Academy, Assam, to speak a few words about the book, International Law, Contemporary Developments, Essays in honor of Professor A.K. Koul. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Shri Kiren Rijiju ji, Honorable Union Minister for Law and Justice, Honorable Mr. Justice A.K. Sikri, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, Professor P.C. Joshi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, registrars of both the universities, Delhi University, Mr. Vikas Gupta, and Dr. Indranushi Das from NLU Assam. My Guruma, Mrs. Dulari Koul, wife of Professor A.K. Koul, who was joined from Canada. Their daughter, Ms. Sunita from United States, and son, Mr. Atul from Canada. Professor D.N. Johar, Professor J.L. Paul, Professor O.P. Sharma, Dr. Topi Basar, Mr. Satish Upadhyay, and Mr. Yogesh Bhardwaj from Satyam International. All my colleagues from National Law University, Assam and University of Delhi, respected teachers from various institutions, dear students, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. Writing a first script in the honor of a teacher is the best way to give him a tribute. With that objective in mind, we took the consent of Professor A.K. Koul to go ahead with this book. I, along with my colleagues, Professor Pinki Sharma and Dr. Ashutosh Acharya, started working on this book sometimes in 2019. Professor Koul was a renowned scholar, a great academician, and a well-known jurist. I knew him from the time when I became a student way back in 1990 in the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. However, while writing a chapter on him, I thought to touch upon his personal life also. The reason was that his life story may be a motivation for all of us. While interacting with him, he revealed certain things about his life which were quite emotional. One of such incidents was that he went to Agra from Kashmir for taking admission in medical college because he wanted to become a doctor. But unfortunately, he was robbed of his belongings and money, and he was literally on the streets. He spent 5 days without food while wandering on roads. He went to police station to lodge a complaint, and the police stations, the policeman, they have simply turned him away. Finally, he went to post office to write a letter to his family. That the postmaster was a Kashmiri. He talked to him in Kashmiri, and Professor Koul, who was a young boy at that point of time, broken down. The postmaster gave him shelter in his home and offered him food till his brother came to take him back. However, Professor Koul persuaded his brother to take him to Aligarh Muslim University, where he took admission in LLB, and then he moved on to Delhi University for doing his LLM and PhD. Professor Koul, as we all know that he was a renowned scholar, so when he wrote his first book, that was Legal Framework of UNCTAD in the World Trade. The book became so famous, it was published by the international publisher from Netherlands, that it became a prescribed reading in the London School of Economics. He wrote many other books which are prescribed reading in many of the law schools of the country. Being a student, I learned a lot from him, whether it was teaching, writing research papers, editing, or doing any other academic work. His life story is an inspiration for all of us as to how a village boy from Kashmir, who faced so many ups and downs in his life throughout, could come to the level of becoming a vice chancellor of 2 universities and also visiting professor at several universities in the United States. He had a long list of achievements. When Professor Koul was Dean at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, the doors of Dean's office remained open for all at all times. No appointment was required to meet him. Anybody, whether a teacher, a student, or a guest, could walk in and meet him. During his deanship in 1999, he brought all law teachers of the country together by forming an All India Law Teachers Congress, which is still in existence. The present book is a tribute to our beloved professor who left for heavenly abode this year in the month of April. The book is titled as International Law, Contemporary Developments. It contains chapters on international aspects of trade law, intellectual property laws, private international law, law of war, international criminal law, refugee law, international human rights, outer space law, etc. When the manuscript was ready, the issue before me was whom to approach for writing a foreword for the book. The first name which came to my mind was that of Honorable Lordship Justice A.K. Sikri, who has not only been an extraordinary judge, but also a great scholar, and at the top of it, an excellent human being. Justice Sikri knew Professor Koul very well. Lordship did not take even a second to accept my request of writing a foreword. When I approached the Lordship again to be the guest of honor and also deliver a talk on Singapore Convention on Mediation, the Lordship was very tightly placed. He's having international arbitration continuously for 4 days. But then when I requested him, the Lordship said, don't worry, I'll reschedule everything for Professor A.K. Koul. And he has rescheduled his international arbitration today, where, of course, the parties from different states are there. I know it's very difficult, Lordship, but then thank you very much for showing so much of generosity. Thank you very much, Lordship. I do not know whether Honorable Minister Shri Kiren Rijiju ji, who is an illustrious alumnus of the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi, was taught by Professor A.K. Koul or not. But showing all regards, he gave his kind consent to grace the occasion and release the book. Let me just tell you that I proposed the date, I proposed the time, and the same date and time was accepted by Honorable Minister. So this is the kind of regard which he gave. Honorable Sir, we are highly obliged to you for accepting our invitation and gracing the occasion. When the entire book was ready, but then due to pandemic, the publishers, Satyam International, Mr. Satish Upadhyay, who's the owner of that, could not get an ISBN because the offices remained closed for a long time. In between, Professor Koul got a call from the Almighty and he proceeded for his heavenly journey. The regrets will remain that today he is not present among us physically. However, he will continue to survive through his teachings, writings, and blessings, which all of us can feel at all times. With these words, I thank you very much. Namaskar.
A million feelings, 1,000 thoughts, 100 memories, one person. Thank you, Professor V.K. Ahuja sir, for the illuminating words. We move on to the most awaited moment of the evening, when the book entitled International Law, Contemporary Developments, Essays in Honor of Professor A.K. Koul, is to be released by the dignitaries. May I request the chief guest of the program, Honorable Union Minister Law and Justice, Shri Kiren Rijiju sir, the guest of honor, Honorable Mr. Justice A.K. Sikri sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Delhi, Professor Joshi sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of National Law University Judicial Academy, Assam, Professor V.K. Ahuja sir, and the other proud editors of the book, to display the same on the screen to symbolically denote the release of the book. As happens sometimes, a moment settled and hovered and remained for much more than a moment. A sound stopped and movement stopped for much, much more than a moment. And then the moment was gone. Thank you very much, respected dignitaries, for this precious moment in time. We move on to a very important lap of this program. We are humbled by the gracious presence of Shri Kiren Rijiju, Honorable Union Minister, Law and Justice, Government of India, as the chief guest of today's program. The first test of a truly great man is his humility. By humility, I don't mean doubt of his powers or hesitation in speaking his opinion, but merely an understanding, a deep understanding of the relationship of what he can say and what he can do. Once again, I welcome you, Honorable Minister, sir, to this program jointly hosted by Naloja and University of Delhi. It is my proud privilege to present to the House a brief bio note of yours. Shri Kiren Rijiju born on 19th November 1971, hails from West Kameng district of Arunachal Pradesh. He completed his graduation from Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Further, in 1998, he earned his graduate degree in law from Campus Law Center, Faculty of Delhi, University of Delhi. Shri Kiren Rijiju served as a member of Khadi and Village Industries Commission from 2000 to 2005 at the very young age of 29. In the 2004 general election, Shri Rijiju was elected as a member of the 14th Lok Sabha, representing the constituency of Arunachal West. Shri Rijiju entered the Lok Sabha for the second time in 2014 from the Arunachal West constituency of Arunachal Pradesh. In May 2019, Shri Kiren Rijiju became Minister of State, Independent Charge for Youth Affairs and Sports and Minister of State for Home Affairs. In July 2021, very recently, he became Minister of Law and Justice in the second Modi ministry when cabinet overhaul happened. Sir, may I call upon you to kindly present your address to the House.
Thank you. Namaskar. First of all, I would like to extend my greetings to Honorable Justice A.K. Sikri ji, the learned former judge of the Supreme Court of India, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, Professor P.C. Joshi ji, Professor V.K. Ahuja ji, the Vice Chancellor of the National Law University and Judicial Academy, Professor Pinki Sharma ji, Dr. Ashutosh Acharya ji, the academicians, contributors of this book, other dignitaries, and my dear students present in this webinar on the occasion of the launch of the book titled International Law, Contemporary Developments. This is essays in the honor of Professor A.K. Koul. I am feeling privileged to be invited for this very important function. I wish this kind of function could be done in a big auditorium where we can have lots of people sitting together and feel the pulse of the moment. But still, due to the prevailing situation, we are still able to connect through the digital means, through the hybrid mode. We are using the technology. So good to see such a great luminaries in the field of judiciary from the academics. And I could learn so many things listening to Justice Sikri ji and our, of course, learned Ahuja ji. And in the times to come, I'm very confident that we will have more opportunities to share opinions with each other, and especially a younger person like me has a lot of things to learn from the seniors. This occasion is very special, and we all know that Professor A.K. Koul's contribution to the field of international law and law in general is widely known to one and all belonging to the field of law. Bringing a collection of essays is the best way of paying tribute to an academician at par, as it furthers the objectives of learning and researching in the field of law. It would have been much alive if he himself could have witnessed this book. Professor Koul's work is notable in the field of international law and will be a source of inspiration and information for the coming and present generations. Be it students, academicians, judges, organizations, and other stakeholders. It was an honor and privilege of our country to have him. It is from this inspiration only that this book is born as festschrift to Professor A.K. Koul. With the globalized economies, interrelational and interdependency of nations with each other, the role and importance of international law comes into picture. The importance is further emphasized upon in the global peacekeeping aspect. International law is in its developmental phase. Since the last century, it has been developing in many directions. As the complexities of life in the modern era have multiplied, and therefore constant research of the past, present, and future on this subject is required. Changes that occurred within the international community can be momentous and reverberate throughout the system. It is pertinent to note that the book brings to the fora almost all contemporary international issues that require immediate attention and solution. The pandemic came with multifaceted problems, and we fought like warriors at all fronts under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. This book is also an addition to the fight against the pandemic, as it is discussed and provides solutions to the novel problems posed due to COVID-19 under its various chapters. States and institutions, international as well as national, play the role of intermediaries to facilitate a better and peaceful living as a member of this society. It has been realized that the role of researchers, writers, and the teachers become pertinent, wherein some contributors achieve excellence at par while contributing to the world at large. This book is an evident example of efforts put forth by the young legal minds as an attempt to contribute on this subject. This book contains a comprehensive description and explanation of various aspects of international law and provides a holistic perspective from its history to the present scenario, and gives a thought about the future legal development to its readers. The importance of this publication can be understood by the fact that it is a valuable addition to the existing text on international law. The publication is not only a commentary on the subject, but also an infusion of experts' thoughts of authors from diversified areas. I hope it should receive appreciation from academicians, professionals, researchers, and students interested in this topic. I hope we have the blessings of Professor A.K. Koul from wherever he is right now, and congratulate the contributors to the book and the editorial team comprising Professor V.K. Ahuja, Dr. Pinki Sharma, Dr. Ashutosh Acharya for this valuable publication in the field of international law, which surely will be helpful to all the stakeholders of this society. I'm also glad to mention that today, Justice A.K. Sikri spoke about mediation. And let me have this privilege to inform this gathering that we are actively considering the process of tabling the mediation bill in the parliament. The draft is complete, and I have already taken the briefings. Some of the inputs which I have heard from Justice Sikri is very, very useful. And as the Minister for Law and Justice, let me also make this liberty of announcing that if necessary, we will utilize some of the suggestions from Justice Sikri to increase the value of the draft, which we have already made it in a ready format. But I'm sure before we table it in the parliament, I would like to have more inputs from different sources. And some inputs I've already received from Justice Sikri today. It's very, very useful. And another aspect is earlier we have appropriation and conciliation bill, the act is there. But now we all know in the international arena, appropriation is taking its own shape, and conciliation and mediations are taking in a very combined shape. So we can think about how to improvise the mediation as well as conciliation. And I have already thought about seeking some more advice from my own ministry as well as from the many resourceful institutions as well as individuals. Justice Sikri also spoke at length about the Singapore Convention. Definitely, it is the obligation on the part of the government to give it a shape. When we are signatory to any international convention, then the parliament of the nation must take the necessary steps. And I'm aware of that. And as the minister in charge, I'll try to ensure that within this coming parliament session of the winter, we will be able to take it further. And I'm getting it ready for the cabinet approval. Another issue which it struck me from the remarks of Justice Sikri is about the bilateral investment treaties. This is very, very important, and I need to dwell upon this matter at length because we have seen in the past, in the recent past also, certain judgment at the international courts which have gone against India, and we have to pay a heavy amount from our national exchequer, which is not good for our nation, our economy. We need to have certain provisions, if necessary, new laws to ensure that we become attractive in investment destination, and at the same time we have adequate safeguards to ensure that we do not let it expropriation of the things from the investing companies, and at the same time we have to ensure that the Indian legal system as well as Indian government is very proactive to safeguard the interests of the investors. And let me also admit that in the international forum, our legal team is not very strong. As a strong emerging nation, India must have a strong team of lawyers at international forum. It's not the Europeans and Americans who should dominate. And India, because we have the capacity to make our presence felt at the international forum. And I'm sure all our national law universities and colleges will ensure that we have a good set of people who would go to international forum also. And also for the mediation and arbitration, we need to train our lawyers. Who are the mediators? Who are the arbitrators? We have to ensure that adequate steps are taken. For that, we need to look into the education system. When we talk about legal education and legal profession, we have to ensure that we are equipped with the right set of people for that job. We need to take certain proactive steps. I'm aware of my responsibility for discharging a rightful leadership role from the government to ensure that we work as a team. I look forward to work with all our national law universities and colleges to come together and work as a team. Today, I don't want to take much time, but I'm extremely delighted that this very important book related to international law has been launched. And I've already mentioned in my brief remark that our academicians, researchers, students will get huge benefits by going through this very important book. I compliment once again for all those who have made this book possible, those who have made huge contributions, and this will become very important. And I'm recommending that anybody who has understanding about law, legal affairs, international issues must read this book. I myself has not read it. I have not read this book, so I also need to read it or maybe somebody who is a better person can read and brief me and make me understand more about the content in this book. But having said that, thank you for inviting me to this very important function. And I extend my best wishes to all the team. And also, I also look forward for more such valuable books in the future. Thank you very much.
Can I take 1 minute in response? Kiranji, let me first really commend you and congratulate you that in such a short span of time, you have now your total grip on the major issues with which we are confronted with, and particularly the two issues which you flagged about the mediation as well as BIT. And so therefore, I think that yes, ministry is in safe hands and you will do something substantial in this direction. And insofar as Mediation Act is concerned, just for information, I think this process started maybe a week before you assumed the office, but a week after you assumed the office, I had a very detailed discussion with Mr. Mandi Ratta, your law secretary, who had come to me on this mediation bill itself. And we had discussed so many aspects. But I am there always if further, if I can contribute further in this behalf. Thank you very much.
That's so kind of you, Justice, and I'll definitely get more inputs from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
If a man can bridge the gap between life and death, if he can live on after his death, then indeed he's a great man. Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir, for your kind presence. And we shall look forward to your physical presence in our campus on some occasion. Thank you so much. Thanksgiving is the greatest kind of giving. As we verge on the closure of today's program, may I call upon Professor Pinki Sharma of the University of Delhi to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandarani Chaudhary ji. Good evening to one and all. Honorable Shri Kiren Rijiju ji, Minister of Law and Justice, Government of India. Honorable Mr. Justice A.K. Sikri ji, former Judge, Supreme Court of India. Honorable Professor P.C. Joshi, Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi. Honorable Professor B.K. Ahuja, Vice Chancellor, National Law School and Judicial Academy, Assam. All the family members of Professor A.K. Koul and all the contributors to this book, and other dignitaries, colleagues, luminaries, lawyers, dear students, and viewers present from India and abroad. It gives me an immense pleasure and honor to deliver a vote of thanks in this virtual book release program, International Law, Contemporary Developments, essays in the honor of our Professor A.K. Koul. I, on behalf of National Law School and Judicial Academy, Assam, Delhi, School of Public Policy and Governance, Institution of Eminence, University of Delhi, theme of this book and viewers present, I am extremely honored, privileged and grateful to Honorable Shri Kiren Rijiju ji for taking out precious time from his busy schedule in these hard times and enlightening us this subject and encouraging us to dwell more jurisprudence in the field of international law. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Honorable Mr. Justice E.K. Sikri ji, great jurist of present era, for gracing the occasion with your presence today. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your expertise, experience, and wisdom on the subject and leaving us with modernist thoughts and information. We are delighted to have you, sir. I am thankful to our great Honorable Sir, Professor P.C. Joshi, sir, for the constant support of encouragement and appreciation throughout the process of editing of the book and its publication. We are honored to have you, sir, as our Vice Chancellor. I am also thankful to Professor P.K. Ahuja for taking all the pains by yourself for coordinating this virtual program. It was his idea to have a book on this multidimensional aspect, which will be helpful for all the stakeholders and contribute to the jurisprudence of international law. Sir, your constant guidance and availability in the matters were of great help and comfort. We are also thankful to all the contributors who have provided their inputs in the form of research papers and articles for this publication, which are the actual heart and soul of this book. Your commitment to produce well-researched chapters in various features of the law has been incredible. I would not miss to appreciate and compliment Dr. Ashutosh Acharya, who also happens to be the co-editor of this book, for his successful coordination, sincerity, and hard work. It was his efforts that have brought a thought into reality, which we are witnessing today. I would like to appreciate and render my warmest wishes to Kushal Garg, our students' support. His commitment, perseverance, and hunt for excellence has been invaluable throughout all stages of the publication. Thank you so much, Mr. Garg. I would be failing my duties if I don't thank our publisher, Satyam International, for accepting our request to publish the book. The publisher has put their sincere and best efforts in bringing out this in the best possible manner. It will be gross failure on my part if I fail to express my gratitude to Dr. Nandrani Chaudhary, Assistant Registrar of NLU Assam, who has coordinated the whole event. Thank you, one and all, for joining with us. Stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, respected dignitaries, for your kind presence.